right, welcome to Talkin' Investing. I'm Tom. I'm on my own today. Sorry. George is on the road and working. So I have a few messages from him, but he won't be here with us today. All right, so today was not good. Hopefully, you guys let me know how you guys did. Hey, JM. Hey, Miguel. Good week, but bad Friday. That's exactly right. And this, I'll tell you what, really, this thing right here at like, what was this, 2:30 or 3 o'clock? Almost, just before the end of the day. Yeah, this was 3:30. This was just a half an hour before the market closed. It was this giant red candle. Does anybody know? Did something specific happen? I'm going to turn the volume. Yeah, I mean, that's not crazy volume or anything. Was this just Friday at the end of the day sell-off? I mean, I feel like that's what the whole day was. This was a Friday sell-off. We had a really nice week all week. And so, of course, everybody had to take their profits and ruin it on Friday. And the market had a big sell-off. So I felt like the Bitcoin miners followed the NASDAQ more than they followed Bitcoin today by far. So I'm going to zoom out a little. This is the 15-minute chart. So how's everybody doing? What did you guys do today? Did anybody make trades, buy, sell? I will tell you guys what I did, and I did buy some stuff today because I am an optimist. Hey, Awakened Soul. Hi, Alex. How's it going? I am still in optimist mode, and I think that this run is not over yet. So I bought into all this selling pressure today. Short Mara, says Matthew. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go to that chart right now, in fact. Even, Mara was down 8% today, Marathon. And, everything had a pretty bad day. But it kind of leveled off at the end of the day. Things were actually a little worse. And even though Bitcoin got worse in the last hour, everything kind of leveled off and got a little better because the NASDAQ, I think, straightened up a little bit. It ended up, See, the NASDAQ ended up down 1.87. It was down a full point more than that earlier in the day. So the Bitcoin miners were following that much more closely. They were getting killed as that went down. And I think as long as Bitcoin is trading in a certain range, the Bitcoin miners will follow the NASDAQ action more than the Bitcoin action. However, when Bitcoin moves out of a range, either to the upside or to the downside, I think then it's the Bitcoin price that matters a lot more. So today, since we were in our range, and I'll go through and show you guys what I'm thinking, I still think we're in a range. Everything to me still looks like we're in a relief rally that is not over. So let me know if you guys disagree with that or agree with that. Everything I'm looking at tells me I got next Wednesday in my head as a potential day that, things could turn around because, the Fed does their thing and sometimes that can throw a wrench into everything. But I don't see anything between now and then why we don't keep doing what we're doing. Matthew said, looking at leaps on the good miners. And I've done that. I've bought some leaps, and I didn't this week. I bought, things got so ridiculous that I was buying, particularly on Hut 8 and Bitfarms. It's like the leaps were like free. It was ridiculous. So I did buy a lot of those. I'm so glad the market dropped. Chance to buy. Very confident. This is Barry. Hey, Barry. By the way, the market didn't dive after Musk news. Yes, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. That is worth talking about. I did put out, I'm on Twitter now, although nobody knows it. So it's Talking Investing. I just started, and that was like the first thing I tweeted was like, man, you know, if this had been the past, that would have been like Bitcoin crash. But because I mean, Tesla sold, I think it was $963 million, so call it $1 billion over the last couple of months. But they announced it, and you know, normally it's when they make those announcements that when Elon Musk says anything about Bitcoin, or just tweets, or just even tweets an image that relates to Bitcoin, that used to be an earthquake, and now it was nothing. So I think that's very good. That's very encouraging. One person should not have that kind of outsized influence on anything, particularly on Bitcoin. So I feel like that's a big part of the maturing process Bitcoin's going through. So I was very pleased that people did not just blindly follow along with Tesla / Elon Musk on this one. And they had their who knows why they sold. They said they had their reasons, and they were doing it for liquidity, and they went out of their way to say that, you know, this is not a verdict on Bitcoin. It's just what we were doing as a business. But either way, thanks, Alex. He said, love your earlier video. Matthew bought Hut calls for $3 and at $3.50 for 35 cents December. So yeah, I mean, the calls, I even went a lot closer to the money than that, because they were, and I bought most of my leaps about a week ago, but I mean, the prices were just ridiculous. Let me catch up. I sold my Cleanspark for a faster horse. I bought 6,500 shares of Riot. Riot has been on fire, and I know everything pulled back and everything was red today. So it was red today, but I'm going to pull that chart up too, because I went Hut and Riot. They're not my two biggest positions, but they're the two I added by far the most to when things were at their bottom a couple weeks ago and last week. So in fact, it's when I think I said this on last Friday's live stream. I did exit my DigiHost position, which I have had since, you know, they were over-the-counter stock and before, and I just felt like that money was going to do better. I sold that and split it between, I think I bought, you know, half of that I put into Riot and half I put into Hut, and that has been a good move, because Riot's been crazy. I mean, even after today's down day, and this looks, I mean, if you look at the chart, today looks awful. This is the daily chart, so this is today's daily candle. But we're still, this is 2 weeks ago. So I'm going from July 5th. So now that was, I think, 2 weeks and 2 days. Even after today's down day, right, it's up 78% in 2 weeks. I mean, it was up 99% at some point in the day today. So, you know, I don't know. That's the people probably start. Somebody earlier said they sold some of their Marathon and that they're shorting it now. I mean, Marathon was up like 150 or 160%. I mean, I am not big on shorting, so I didn't short it, but I wouldn't blame anybody. From the bottom to the top in 2 weeks. So this was 2 days ago. So that was exactly 2 weeks. They were up 175%. I mean, that is total insanity. But this is what, you know, this is the good news, bad news with the miners. This is what they can do. This is a great picture of what the miners can do, and they do. We just haven't had it. We've been in, you know, we've been 8 or 9 months into, for Bitcoin, into, you know, just no, other than the last 2 weeks in March of 2022, it's just been all downward pressure. So, you know, we haven't seen these types of runs. But I'll tell you, in the last 2 weeks of March, I remember I had CleanSpark. They did the same thing. They were up like 160% in 10 days. So this is not uncommon for the miners. And that's why I'm holding. I will hold them because at some point I believe every single one, well, all the ones that I've done my due diligence on and decided to buy. You know, I don't think they're all going to be winners. There's going to be some winners and losers. Although I think there's going to be less losers than everybody thinks. I think losing, I'm going to redefine losing, and I'm going to tell you guys what I mean by that, because I think something's different is happening than everybody thought all these guys were going to go out of business, but something a little bit different than that is happening, in my opinion. I'm just reading. I bought, let's see, Keith said I bought Bitfarms, Hut, and Cores. Nice. I bought, so today I bought August options for Bitfarms. So, because I feel like this rally is not over. So, obviously, I don't recommend dealing in. Those are very short-term options. So, you know, there is a element of risk to that goes way beyond even a leap option. But I just have a lot of confidence this rally is not over. I don't think that we've switched and flipped into a bull market. You guys can let me know if you think that, but I think there's you know, maybe upwards of a week or 2 weeks left on this rally, but certainly at least until next Wednesday, in my opinion. So if I'm wrong, then all my August Bitfarm options are going to go to zero. But it's a chance I'm willing to take. Because some of them I bought, the $2 Augusts, I got some of those for 4 cents today. So you might think, well, you know, Bitfarms is at $1.34. They're never going to be at $2. I mean, they could be at $2 on Tuesday. That's what I'm saying about the Bitcoin miners. That's the potential upside. And if they do that, my 4-penny options are going to be worth 40 or 50 cents. So that's a, you know, 10, 12, 15x you can do, understanding that most of the time that you do that, you're probably just going to lose your money. So, you know, it goes both ways. Good afternoon, Malik. What an awful day, he said. Yeah, today, this was not a great way to end. This was a great week. And it's a bummer that Friday everybody had to sell off and we got to, you know, end on a giant red day. I'm going to go to the 15-minute for a second and see. So, yeah, we're kind of leveling off. But this thing right here, just an hour ago, this was just 1 hour ago. And it seemed like we had bottomed. And this purple line this is one of my key lines. This goes all the way. I can't even show on the 15. I got to go to. So this is on the 4 hour. This line goes back to June 15th. So that's over a month old. Once we went under this line, that was resistance. And now we've been bouncing above and below it for some reason. This line seems to be the one that we keep bouncing off of, which it was the high back on July 7th. So, you know, this is the second time it seems like we've bounced off of that line. I thought this was a stronger line right here, but it's not playing out that way. But having said that, I would like to get back above that, and there's a much 100 times more important line than both of those, right in the middle of those lines, which is, I'm going to zoom in. I don't know if there's, let me get rid of the lines on here. So what's left is, this is the 200-week moving average. So you can see we spent, and I mean, I've talked a lot about this in my videos. This was over a month right here. All these days in a row under the 200-week moving average. And other than one day where we candle wicked up and basically touched it, we did not even interact with this 200-week moving average. And this has never happened before in the history of Bitcoin. So that was one of my strong reasons why everybody said we're in a crypto winter. We're going to go down 85%. We haven't seen the bottom yet. We've actually had bearish activity that's unrivaled. No, we did not get an 85% pullback, but remember, we only got a 300% to the upside this time. We didn't get a 15x or a 30x in this cycle. We got a 3x. So, you know, we pulled back 70%, and we've never, I mean, this right here, this run under the 200-week moving average, this is more days than the entire time Bitcoin has spent under the 200-week moving average in its history. Just all right here, this time right now. So it doesn't get more bearish than that. I feel strongly this was the bottom. And that doesn't mean we're straight up from here, because who knows what comes. There's a lot of downward pressure on the market. But I do think at the worst, we go retest our lows. I do not think we're in one of these 85% crypto winner deals. I think that's, in my opinion, that is just not within reason. Obviously, nothing's impossible. Marvin saying Riot Blockchain, Bit Digital. Yeah, Bit Digital had a nice run as well. Long-term price target for the miners. I mean, it depends what long-term is, and I've been hesitant to give price targets because everything's been so volatile. But I mean, I expect the ones that I'm invested in, and I'm down to, I think I'm down to 5 now, but I think there's 7 or 8 that are worthy at least. And I expect all those to over 5 years to 5x, 10x, 15x. We should see big movement out of the winners in this space, in my opinion. Don't know when it's going to come. That's the problem, right? We all thought it was going to come last year. Everybody, by July of last year, I would say like 90% of the Bitcoin community thought we were going to hit 100,000 last year. And it just did not play out that way. And the whole cycle has changed. So I definitely want to talk about that too, because we're in a different, one of the big problems, and it was a Plan B thing. You guys, I'm sure all remember Plan B, and everybody was obsessed with Plan B's chart, and that was like the word. But the thing is, we've only had a few halvings, so the sample group is so small that when you start to try to draw conclusions from that, yeah, it helps. At least you have something to look at. We've had a few halvings, but it's not enough to create a solid trend or to get, statistically speaking, to draw any conclusions from that small of a sample group. It's dangerous. And I think that we will never see those cycles again. I think that Bitcoin is on a new, more mature trajectory, which is why I don't think it's going to go down to 10,000, which would be the 85% pullback. And I do think we're bound for much, much higher numbers, but it's taking a lot longer than everybody thought. So those are my thoughts in a nutshell on that. Do you think Coors will keep selling Bitcoin? Asked Matthew. Yes, I do. I think Coors is going to keep selling their Bitcoin. Coors just went out and secured $100 million, and that's nice, but you know what? For a company at that scale, that's actually not that much money. And so, yeah, I mean, they've sold, in the last 2 months, they've sold over 8,000 Bitcoin. And I expect them to sell their Bitcoin for the rest of the year. And then we got, do you think Hut 8 will reach the $200 in 2 years, or is that impossible? I feel like that would not be my price target. And Hut 8 is one of my top choices. I have a lot of conviction in that play, but to get to 200 that's asking a lot. I mean, it was down close to $1 a few weeks ago. It's at $2 right now, so that's 100x. For me, if something 15x's in a 2 or 3 year period, that is just a grand slam home run. So, and that's why I'm willing to take the pain that I've taken. A lot of these I'm way down on, but I've averaged down, and, I feel like they will take their run. Whereas there's your blue chip companies, they're not even, it's going to take them 7 years to 2x. In these types of companies, in 2 or 3 years, you could get a 10x. And sometimes you get much, much more than that. I mean, if you were early on Marathon and Riot, and early was only a year and a half ago, maybe just a little more, maybe 20 months ago, you pulled 100x on those already. Not from today's price, but if you bought 20 months ago and sold at the peak, you got your 100x. So it can happen. I mean, I can't say it can't happen. I mean, if Kathy Wood's prediction is right, she's talking about Bitcoin $1 million by 2030. So if Bitcoin's at $1 million or even $500,000, all of these things should multiply. 10x should be the losers. other than ones that don't make it through whatever we're in the middle of right now. Let's see. Sour Melon says, mark my words, Bitcoin will be 50K by the end of the year. I hope you're right, and I think you're right. So I agree with that. I don't have aspirations far beyond that, but I think that's a very reasonable price target for Bitcoin by the end of the year. And I think I'm looking at 30. At some point we're going to break out of this funk, and 29,800 was the low of the year for 2021 last year. So I do think we're going to gravitate back to that. That's all a part of, I don't know how I got on a tangent, but you can see I was talking about this 200-week moving average. You can see we just now got back to it 4 days ago, and we're literally sitting on it right this second as we speak. So we got to reclaim this as support, and then I think once we do that comfortably, I think we'll gravitate back to 28 or 29,000. That'll be step one. And yeah, I think 50 by the end of I feel like that's reasonable. I had contracts I sold expired today. This is Anis Muraro. I'm sorry for I will butcher everybody's name. I'm horrible at reading names. I had contracts I sold expiring today for Riot and Marathon, so I kind of enjoyed the decline. Yeah, that's perfect. If you sold calls, then this was a good day. Alex said, cores this week finally stopped putting new lows. Yay. I am worried they will run out of money before Bitcoin hits 40,000. You're exactly right, Alex. I don't think they're going to run out of money, but it's definitely, they're such a huge organization. They have a lot of overhead, so that's a big machine. I think Cores is going to make it. I'm not invested in Cores right now. I just think they're not going to multiply as fast, in my opinion, but I do think that they're going to make it. And yeah, I think they've bottomed out. I think all these miners have bottomed. I think the miners have bottomed out more so with more conviction even than I think that the Bitcoin miners have, or that Bitcoin's bottomed out. So I do think even if we run back down and retest some of these lows, I just don't think some of these things are going back to where they were. There are exceptions, and Bitfarms is one I want to talk about later because somebody's doing something to Bitfarms, and it's not going to last forever. One Hot Meal said I bought Riot at around $3. Yeah, back in the day, you're saying. So that was probably like last January, a year and a half ago. And then sold it at $9. Yeah, listen, that's a triple. Yazid, again, sorry for pronouncing everybody's name wrong. Do you think it should keep buying Bitfarms? Is it good investment for the long run, 5 years? So, I can't tell you what to buy or what not to buy, but I can tell you that I continue to buy Bitfarms. I think Bitfarms is one of the most oversold things on this list. There's somebody who's putting selling pressure on it, $1.50, and they have been for a month. And I think it's artificial. I think it'll gravitate closer back to $2 sometime sooner than later. So that's what I think about Bitfarms. But and obviously over long term, yeah, that's one of the ones I expect to 5x, 10x, 15x. So that's how I'm playing that. I mess around with the options on Bitfarms, but I buy and hold my position. So I haven't sold any of my Bitfarms stock. But I have bought and sold the options. And I did buy a bunch today because I think this price action today was just profit taking. This was a Friday red day right out of the old school. Lucas says the bottom for Bitcoin is in, but 50K end of the year is way too bullish. So, most people agree with you, Luca. I think JP Morgan or Citi or one of those guys talked about the mid 30s, 35,000. So, that could be right. I think we're going to do a little better than that. I really do. I think when the momentum changes, these cryptocurrencies get momentum. They're worse than penny stocks. It's incredible the momentum they can gain. But who knows? I'll be, if it's 35,000, then so be it. Because we're going to get, in my opinion, we're going to get to where we're going ultimately. So whether we get there by December 31st of 2022 or the middle of 2023, or maybe it takes until the halving in 2024, I think we're going to see Bitcoin numbers that are so significantly higher than where we're trading today that we're not going to care whether, we got to 30,000 or 50,000 by the end of 2022 when we're in 2025 or 2026, in my opinion. Eric, hey Eric, welcome. Methinks Bitfarm is the most undervalued miner. Yeah, I think that right now too. I think they have lagged behind. I think actually Bitfarms and CleanSpark have lagged behind. I'm not sure why, and I think they will play catch up. So I've been buying into those. Core Scientific just got 100 million equity financing despite the bear market. I saw that, and I think they needed that, and that's good. But to put it in perspective, for Core Scientific, 100 million isn't even really a lot of money. So obviously, $100 million is a lot of money, but they have a monster amount of debt, and more so than their debt, they have a lot of overhead. So I like I was telling Alex, I think they'll get through it, and if they got to tap that 100 million, then they'll do it. In the meantime, I think they'll sell their Bitcoin first. But Daniel said, don't worry about cores unless Bitcoin drops below 10,000. They can still make a profit. So yeah, I don't think they're going out of business, but I think they have fallen on hard times, as have many of these guys, because Core, more than anybody, was so ultra aggressive in their expansion. Ryan, why is Hut 8 cost per coin so high at 19K? I will tell you, Ryan, I don't know. Welcome to the stream. I was really surprised. And I've been looking at this, so, a part of me wasn't surprised because I've been looking at it, but when I put it all on paper, and I don't know if any of you guys saw the video where I charted out this is just the direct cash cost. So this is not depreciation or any of that. This is their cost to mine one Bitcoin. And everybody was much higher than I expected, and I'm not satisfied with the level of disclosure that these guys give, because and it's acceptable, it's accepted accounting procedure. They just give one line and they say cost to sales. And then in the footnotes they say cost of sales comprises of, this cost, that cost, this cost. I want to see a breakdown, because we know energy is their main cost. And if all these guys are reporting that their cost per coin of energy is 6 or 7 or 8 or 9,000, how come their direct costs, not including depreciation, are 16, 18, 20,000? What's the rest of that cash money? Obviously, if you put depreciation in there, that pretty much, rule of thumb, that tends to double. The depreciation is about equal for a lot of these companies to the energy costs that they spend. But depreciation is non-cash. In a crypto winter, you don't really care what your depreciation is. You care how much does it cost me in cash to get a Bitcoin, because if it costs more than a Bitcoin is worth, obviously that is a big problem. And I'll tell you, Mawson, very late, they put out their monthly operational update today, and they have had huge struggles. So in their May operational update, they said that they were operating at 1.5 exahash, and they expected by June 30th to be operating at 2.0 exahash. Well, they did the opposite. They unplugged machines. They went from 1.5 exahash down to 1 exahash, and I suspect it's for that reason that, they're just not making money right now. There's no reason for them to ramp up in the middle of, they've got a bunch of other, I did a separate video on them if you guys want to see that. They've got a bunch of other stuff going on. But in the middle of all that, I think the last thing they need to do is ramp up. What do I think of Canon? I think a lot less of it than I did 6 months ago and 3 months ago. That equation has flipped on them, because Canon a lot of people are a little bit confused about what those guys do, because they talk so much about being a Bitcoin miner, but that is just a tiny fraction of their business. They 95 to 99% of their revenue comes from selling ASIC machines. And, you know, you couldn't get your hands on one of those a year ago. And now it's the opposite. People are bailing out of the contracts that they've already given deposits on. So I don't know what's going to happen to Canon. I would much rather be in a Bitcoin miner than in Canon right now. You know, that would be the old picks and shovels play. But the problem is there's a glut of machines right now, which is hard to imagine. I mean, it was just 1 year ago that people were paying 50% deposits for machines they weren't going to get for 8 months. And now, you know, CleanSpark's buying stuff on the open market that's already plugged in and running. But that means somebody else couldn't pay for them anymore and had to sell them. So, you know, CleanSpark picks them up. They hit the ground. They don't even have to plug them in. They're already running. And they bought them for pennies on the dollar, although they wouldn't say their exact price. Hello, Tree. Thanks for all the great info, Tom. Riot, Bitfarms, and Hut are my biggest positions. I buy options here and there. A little, but mostly right calls. Yeah, I mean, that's been a great strategy for the last 8 months. There's no doubt. And that's how you mitigate, like, we've been in a bear market. So, you know, if you're writing calls, that keeps decreasing your cost basis effectively. So, do you think Riot will close the huge gap between 590 and 560? This is right now a potential collection frame. Let me go to the chart and see what you're talking about, because I thought Riot has blown. Yeah, I might not be understanding the question. So if you want to clarify, because I mean, Riot's at $7. They're up. I think they're up still, even after today's action, 80%. So they've had a massive run. Riot calls 80 to 115 strike price for January 2023. I mean, whatever you got paid for that feels like free money, because I can't imagine they're going to be there in January of 2023. But you never know. JM said, how about a wild card play for today? You want me to give you a wild card, or you guys want to throw one at me? One Hot Meal said, I want Bitcoin to crash so I can buy it lower. I will tell you, One Hot Meal, I still, my gut tells me that we're in the middle of a relief rally. I don't think it's over. I think there's more room to the upside, but I do think we're going to retest some lower numbers. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about both. We might go straight down and retest them, and this rally is over, or maybe we don't retest them at all. But that's my thesis right now. It looks to me like we're in a very strong relief rally, and nothing has started to give way yet. I know today was a red day, and you know that had a lot more to do with a Friday sell-off, because if you look at all the technicals on Bitcoin, they did not deteriorate today. So it was not a bad day for Bitcoin. It was just a bad day for the Bitcoin miners. I'll show you on the one-day chart. I mean, we ended up right where we started a day ago, so there was a lot of volatility, but it wasn't a big deal. Michael, Argo looks good, and book value of $10, which was down a few pennies at the most all day. Yeah, I'm finally getting interested in Argo. I was not a believer for a long time, and I have not bought them yet, but I did do a video on them, and they look a lot better. I want to see just a few more things from them, and if I miss it, I miss it, you know, because sometimes you wait to see those things, but that's what everybody else was waiting for, so you end up missing the move. But I'm so deep into Bitcoin miners that if I miss the move, that's okay. But I do agree that Argo's looking a lot better. Michael Anthony says, Benzinga Insights has compiled a list of value stocks in the consumer defense sector that might be worth watching. AGRO, PE of 4.86. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some low PEs. That's a super low PE. do you think Bitcoin will reach 15K this year? So to me, my downside that I have on my chart is $15,700. So who knows? Yeah, if I think it could reach 15.7, then I guess I would say I think it could reach 15. A $15,700 would be a 30% pullback from the 200-week moving average. The only other two times that we went below the 200-week moving average, we pulled back a full 30%. But the thing is, we did that within 1 or 2 days and then went right back above it. So this cycle is obviously totally different than that. So instead, we did not get as low. We never got down to that 15,700, but we did spend over a month under the 200-week moving average. So this is what I'm saying. Like, the cycle has changed. I read an article, I can't remember who wrote it. Somebody talked about, how maybe this whole cycle does not revolve around the Bitcoin halving. And I think there's a lot of credence to that. I think that the going forward, obviously that's going to have an effect. I'm not saying it's going to have no effect, but I don't think that is the focal point, be all, end all, and that we have to wait for the next halving to have the next bull run. I think there's a lot of catalysts that are much bigger than that are in between now and then, including, but not limited to, legislation, which, whether you're a fan of it or not, Bitcoin will not get where it's going until the United States passes legislation. So I think they'll end up with something reasonable. Obviously, they've already tipped their hand on Bitcoin. It's going to be treated as a commodity. I mean, they've made that crystal clear. As for the rest of the altcoins, everybody, I think is just using that as a leverage point to get some other things, which is how the politics works. But I think we're going to get that. And then off the heels of that, we're going to get an ETF, not a futures ETF, an actual Bitcoin ETF. And that's going to have a more dramatic impact than anything, because there's 95% of the money in the market that won't go buy a Bitcoin, but they will buy an ETF. So, all the retirement plans, there's so much money that is going to open the door up to, that I think, to me, that is the gigantic event that will, and it may take a minute because, manipulation, they may tank it for a minute before that happens, but ultimately that is how a massive amount of money is going to pour into Bitcoin. So, and it's safe. I know that right now, and also I think cryptocurrency purists and Bitcoin purists will disagree with me. I would say there's a lot of people that think the only safe cryptocurrency is in your hard wallet, anywhere else in the world, and it's at risk. And I understand that point of view. I'm just saying an ETF is regulated and it is secured in ways that the cryptocurrency universe is not. So, and people are comfortable and they've used that vehicle and they understand it and know it. So, you're 50-somethings, 60-somethings, 70-somethings, and I am in one of those groups. They're going to be much more likely to use that as an investment vehicle. Why do the stock market even close? They should be open 24/7. It just allows manipulation. I know. I mean, the market is not like cryptocurrency. There's the stock market, cryptocurrency altogether just got back to a $1 trillion market cap. The financial markets are hundreds of times larger than that, including the derivative products. So it just would be chaos at 24/7. If we hadn't created all of these derivative products and massive leveraging, then that would be one thing. And I don't like there's already starting to be a lot of derivative projects and a lot of leveraging. One of the reasons we're in this Bitcoin low, in my opinion, is the massive leveraging that certain exchanges have allowed. That is something that keeps allowing the big money to just cut the legs out under Bitcoin whenever they want to. Especially every time every time things line up and it looks like we're about to have a run, people leverage up, and then, the big money just cuts the legs out from under them. And they have enough money to keep putting in, especially on leverage, so you can't win that game. Later, when this is a $10 trillion asset category, you know, that's not going to be as true. Eric said, Stronghold looks like it wants to break out. Lost all its gains from the bell. Yeah, I mean, everything went down so much today. Stronghold was about to have another. They had a huge day 2 days ago, up 50%, and then they pulled back a little bit yesterday. It looked like it was going to run again today, but of course, everything ended up getting beat up today. But they were up a bunch, if I remember correctly. They just were way off of their highs. Zero. Wow. So they ended up at zero. Yeah, I mean, I think they were over 20% up early on, so that pulled way back. I mean, Stronghold is one of those pass or fail things, and I did a video on Stronghold, and some people got a little bit not happy about that video. And the fact is, they have a cash problem. It's not. I love that company. I want to do another video on that. They're a unique company. Nobody else in the world does what they do. And if we want to be honest, if we want to be environmentally friendly, nobody's doing anything more for the environment than Stronghold. So I am very hopeful that they will succeed and thrive. But I have to acknowledge the fact that they have a massive liquidity problem. They've done a few things. It looks like they may be working through that, but they gotta. If you can't get through the short term, it's the oldest story in the book. It's cash. If you run out of cash, it doesn't matter how good the rest of your business model is. You know, you go out of business in the middle. So I hope that doesn't happen to them. I don't think it's going to happen to them, but it's why their stock, they got down to a $30 million market cap at one point. I mean, that is unthinkable based on the size of the company that they are. Right? That's the size of a DigiHost or a DMG. These guys are so many multiples bigger and more complicated and complex and have so many more assets. So I'm not in them right now, but I'm rooting for them. And if you don't know what they do, I recommend going and taking a look at that company and see what they do, because it's pretty wild. It's amazing. Ryan saying, Texas Republicans call for the state's Bill of Rights to include a clause allowing citizens to own, hold, and use whatever medium of exchange they choose, including Bitcoin or other digital assets. Well, there you go. Then I got a breaking news. Oh, maybe that's just a copy. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there is absolutely no chance that the U.S. will ever ban Bitcoin. So I know that was a hot topic for some parts of the last year, but I think that was never on the table. I don't think it's on the table right now, and I don't think it ever will be. Some amount of regulations, and here's what we're finding out, because I'm not a regulations person. Believe me, but when there's no regulations and all bets are off, it turns into the Wild West, and you end up with Celsius and 3 Arrow, and you've got to be it's not so much it's not like the Bitcoin, it's not the coins themselves that need the regulating as much as, although there's obviously been a lot of scams there as well, but the exchanges, you know, a way to trade these fairly and have your money protected. Right now, if you put your money in the bank, there's a protection mechanism. If you put your money in a brokerage, there's a protection mechanism. If you put your money in a crypto exchange, there's no protection. You just hope that they don't end up losing all your money. And so far, a couple of them have ended up losing everybody's money. Now, maybe they'll get some of that back and people will get paid some of their money over the course of time. But, you know, that hurts the price of all of these cryptocurrencies when, you know, there's no regulations around the exchanges. So I think there's 2 gigantic regulations that are necessary. I think it's number 1 on the exchanges and number 2 on the stable coins. The rest of the coins, hey, let everybody invest in whatever they want to invest in. right? There's tens of thousands of stocks. So, you know, I'm not worried about the coins themselves. The stable coin, I can tell you right now, there's going to be massive regulation in the U.S. on stable coins, because if Tether or USD were to break down, that could possibly have, you know, systemic consequences beyond what we even just lived through with some of these over leveraged brokers or exchanges that went out of business. So I think that's where the big regulations are coming, on exchanges and on stable coins. And I have no inside information on that whatsoever, but I'm extremely confident that that is what's going to happen. Ryan's asking, any opinions on Voyager? They finally got their stock back up. So eventually when these companies file for reorganization, their stock comes back, and I think there's a Q on the end of it or something like that. And you know, they've been super volatile. I'm staying away from them. I think that's, you know, that's one of those super unfortunate situations. Voyager, I don't know how. See, if they were regulated and there was more disclosures, how did they lend one counterparty? Remember, they're a $100 million company, even before they melted down. So you can't have a $100 million market cap company lending in an unsecured way $600 million to one essentially hedge fund. Like, that's Voyager doing that is why we're going to have regulations. It's just irresponsible. It's foolishness. The risk management aspect of that, there had to be somebody in the building that was screaming, do not do this, because that was blatantly, obviously, an unreasonable amount of risk to take. And they have to, these exchanges have to consider themselves financial institutions, because that's what they're trying to act like. So if you want to act like a brokerage or a bank, then, you know, you got to use the same level of risk management. You're dealing with other people's money. You know, that's a situation where all of a sudden nobody gets their money. They froze everybody's account. Nobody can get their money. So that should not happen. So I'm not trying to go on about that, but I will just say, I think that for me, that's why I think, although I'm not a regulations person, I don't think you can have zero regulations. And the uncertainty of looming regulations is worse than anything. Whatever the regulations there are is better than regulations not in place yet that are just looming over the whole industry. That's the most damaging thing to any industry. Any advice on Volta? I mean, I'm holding my Volta. I didn't do it. I was actually going to add to it today, but I did not end up doing that. The electric vehicle sector, and Volta, for those of you that don't know, you guys probably mostly know, and I've done a bunch of videos on them. They're an EV charging station. They also have a media aspect to what they do. So there's a giant screen on their, so they have a couple of revenue sources, and their EV charging, and to me there's 4 pure plays on that, and I mean, I believe all 4 of them are going to win, right? There's plenty of room. The federal government and the state of California are going to put enough money into EV charging stations that will more than support the 4 main ones that are pure plays on that, and Volta is one of them, and it's way oversold. So, and I'm just going to scroll down because I have one of my next lists. This is the EV sector today. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm seeing. I mean, Lucid down 8%, everything. Neo down 7%, and then the small stuff. Well, let me see here. EVgo down 10%, ChargePoint down 6%. Blink was down 7.5%, Volta down 8.8%. So all of the EV charging station plays got decimated today, but all of the electric vehicle plays got decimated today. This was just a red Friday. This was old school. I mean, we got a little bit used to some green Fridays over the last month, but if you remember the last 6 months before that, this was just every Friday. at least this Friday, it was profit taking. I mean, a lot of weeks they were a down week, and then you got crushed on Friday anyway. But this week, I think, was more along the lines of profit taking because there were some big, big movers this week. So for me, I still feel good about Volta. And any one of those charging plays, in my opinion. All in on Bitfarms, says Pobrain. And I mean, that might be my biggest position also. So I can tell you. And like I said, I added a bunch of options, short-term options to it today. That's how much I feel like it's about to get a bump. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't sell. I will not sell a share of my Bitfarms probably for many, many, many years. So I am long-term extremely bullish on them. They mine. Here's the thing. Their mining operations are ahead of most of the rest of the pack. And they have been focused on adding to their exahash. Their cost per coin seems to be held within reason. At the moment, they're 100% green. Now they're going to go start using natural gas as a part of their mix. So, I don't know how all of this regulations are going to play out on this green aspect of everything, but right now they're I won't say allegedly, they reported that they would be at 4 exahash active by the end of July. So that's what I'm expecting. So they're at 4 exahash, and that's all hydro. So, if they're going to add a little bit of natural gas to that, I think it's an unrealistic expectation for an entire industry to be 100% green. And here's the thing. If somebody can point out one industry in the entire marketplace that's 50% green, then I would start to even have the discussion. But there isn't one. There isn't one. And the overall market is just a little bit over 20% green. So when you've got companies like Bitfarms that are 99% green, I mean, I just don't see how you can fault them. If that 99 pops down to 80% green because they're using natural gas. It's not even coal. I mean, everybody's got a very different opinion on that as well, I'm sure. So, whatever your beliefs are, I think we all ultimately have similar beliefs. We want to do the right thing for the environment. But I think for me, asking everybody to immediately be perfect is never a reasonable expectation. So I just think that's a general rule you can use across anything. Let's see. Zippy mobile EV charger looks interesting, and I don't even know that, so I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look at that. Let's see, Luca. But why? Luca said, but why do you keep EV charging stocks? The government can't spend billions on charging stations with high CPI and recession. No, the government shouldn't spend billions on it, but they are going to. So that's why. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But, I mean, they have made it crystal clear that this is the direction that they're moving in. And, I mean, California is already passing out money, big time. And I think the federal government, to some extent, is right behind them. And the bottom line is, if you are going to have... Here's the thing. If you're going to have electric vehicles, you have to have these charging stations. Otherwise, they're worthless, right? I mean, just speaking here in the United States, and you guys can tell me what it's like in your countries if you're in different countries. Other than the West Coast, mainly California, the infrastructure does not exist for people to convert to electric vehicles. They would have to buy a charging station at home and charge it themselves. There's no, I won't say none. You would have to search high and low to find an EV charging station where I am. And, I think that's true for the vast majority of the United States right now. So that's a big, big change that has to occur. I'm not even, like, that's the political side of it. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I don't care. I'm just looking at the investment side of it, and I just think from an investment standpoint, it's coming, in my opinion. Yazid is asking, is NEO better than Lucid for long investment? So I am not invested in either of those, and I will tell you, the large cap EV stocks, so on my list, I'm going to just move this a little if I can. These top 6 stocks, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, NEO, Xpeng, and Li Automotive, these are large cap. Obviously, Tesla is on another level. They're one of the largest cap market companies in the world. I think 5th or 6th, whatever the case is. So Tesla is bigger than every single company on the rest of this list put together, and it's not even close from a market cap standpoint. And oftentimes I get accused of being a Tesla fanatic, which makes me laugh because I have never owned a share of Tesla, and I probably never will. But I have to acknowledge the fact that they're like the 5th or 6th biggest market cap company in the world. They just, yesterday alone, they added $100 billion to their market cap. So that's what kind of company Tesla is. So as an investment, you know, there's an awful lot of people that have gotten rich investing in Tesla. It's not for me. I don't understand I don't want to say I don't understand. I think people overestimate the incredible things that they believe Tesla's going to do over the next decade. So maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it's all going to be self-driving cars and robots, and you know, we're all going to be of no use anymore. But I feel like they're a little overly optimistic, and it's already on the self-driving car. They're already years past where they promised that was going to be out, and they're not close. And that doesn't mean they haven't done a good job, because driver assist is awesome. And the driver assist functions on all of these vehicles have gotten dramatically better. And I think that makes the cars a lot safer. But to get to the point where there's nobody in the driver's seat, in my opinion, we're not in that neighborhood. I know that there's a few select test places where there's a few vehicles that do that. But in general, we're not close to that yet. And I don't know that that's the future. I don't think it is, but 10 years from now, you can tell me I'm wrong. Alex is saying every automaker, legacy and new, are BEV committed. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got Ford and GM each put like $30 billion or more each into their battery electric vehicle divisions. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is happening. This isn't like I want it to happen or I don't want it to happen. It's happening. We're in the middle of it. And they're not even the big ones. Volkswagen rivals Tesla in the amount of vehicles they sell. And there are many others. So, yeah, I mean, the amount of big players selling battery electric vehicles is huge. One hot meal, are Tesla superchargers free? I don't know the answer to that question. Any opinions on Arrow? Yes, I do have an opinion on Arrow. I've done some videos on Arrow. My biggest thing with Arrow is, and they've actually had a nice little surge after getting beat up. I'm just going to pull them up. So these guys are in the electric vehicle sector. They make something a little more specific. It's not, you know, a passenger vehicle on the road. It's a last mile delivery type of thing for campuses and that kind of stuff. And they're just getting going. But you can see their previous close, they closed at $1.01. So they had gotten down to 74 cents, which was madness. Even them at 97 cents, I think, is insanity. And the reason is, if you look at their market cap's $36 million. Well, they have no debt and twice as much cash as that. So I just, anytime I see that where you've got a company with a massive negative enterprise value, to me, there's gonna be, that will correct itself. And that doesn't mean they're gonna succeed in the long run and be the best company ever. It's just they're so oversold that they actually have a negative enterprise value at this point. I'm going to go to Yahoo. Sometimes their numbers aren't right, but this looks about right. Their company is valued at negative $29 million. So that doesn't make sense to me. That means everybody agrees that Arrow's the worst EV company by far, because there's no other. Actually, there's one other EV company. I think XL also has a negative enterprise value, but there are circumstances where you can have a negative enterprise value. This, in my opinion, is not one of them. So for me, the free money is that, you know, they got $2 a share in cash sitting in the bank, and they're trading at 97 cents. And oh, by the way, if they happen to succeed at what they're doing, then, you know, they were at $10. So, you know, that's a potential 10x rate there. So now you got a potential 10x to the upside because of their cash position. I just don't think you have that much downside, although they did get down to 74 cents. So, you know, the market has proven they will oversell this. But I like this company. I own shares in Arrow. And so, you know, that's my feelings on them, but you guys have to decide. Any new IPOs coming in this space? Anyone watching the IPO space? So Celsius was going to be the big IPO in the Bitcoin mining space. And I didn't find this out until they went bankrupt. They had one of the biggest Bitcoin mining operations out there. They had, I think, 80,000 machines with another 40,000 on order. And they were getting ready to IPO the mining division as a spin-off company. And obviously that's all gone the other way, and now even the mining portion of what they're doing is in bankruptcy at the moment. And I don't know anybody else who's about to we had so many SPAC/IPOs enter into this space over the last year that it definitely is overcrowded. I mean, we went from 2 to 20, and we were really at 5 always, in my opinion, because there were 3 on the Canadian exchange that you could buy over the counter in the United States, Hut Hive and Bitfarms, that, you know, they're really even more established than Marathon and Riot in Bitcoin mining as far as experience goes. So we had 5, now we have 20. It's getting a bit much. GM, Evo, and Pilot will have charging stations every 50 miles on major highways starting next year. ChargePoint is adding 4K stations to travel stops in the next few years. The infrastructure is coming, and that is from John Richardson. So, yeah, I mean, there's some, I'm going to call them facts. I'm going to trust you, John. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. This is coming. And Alex is saying there's only right now 1 million EV chargers globally. So that is woefully insufficient. I mean, that has to be multiplied by I don't know what to get the infrastructure in place. JM, sounds like you got to go. Have a great weekend. Thank you. You too. Have I heard of Verb? What do you think about? I either have not heard of them or I don't remember them. Let me just quick check. Software as a service application platform in the United States, Japan, internationally. I'm looking at a lot of these software as a service companies. I don't remember Verb. I either don't know them at all or I don't remember them. And then I can add them to my list. I have a list of these that I follow, but I just feel like money's not rotating into this right now. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, they were up 12% today, it looks like. So green just went ballistic for some reason. John Richardson, they are facts. I believe you. I was not questioning you. All right, so I mean, you can see I don't know what this action was. To get back to, I'm just going back to the Bitcoin 15-minute chart because I still haven't figured out the answer to this little candle right here. So it looks like, it's not as, it's only a $300 or $400 candle, I guess. But this was a gigantic sell-off right as the day was coming to an end to get down to. But my point was, you can see this line. So it feels like this was an awful Friday and Bitcoin had a bad day, but this was yesterday. So we were here yesterday, we're here today. So yeah, we went up a bunch in the middle, and I think that run will continue. So that's my thesis for the weekend and for Monday and Tuesday and the first half of Wednesday is I feel like this run is going to continue. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to regret it because I did buy some short-term options, and that's on me. So if I lose that, I lose that. If we don't go up over the weekend, I'll probably just liquidate them on Monday and just take whatever's left because I feel like by the end of the weekend, we should be in the 24s, pushing 25. I think this, I have thought strongly that this run was going to end somewhere in the mid-25s. So we never really did get there. We got just a little bit over 24, and I still see everything moving in the right direction despite this afternoon of negative pressure. Like I said, all we did, look at right here. We were right here. This was at 10:30 yesterday. So, yeah, we're bouncing off of this line. But we're bouncing off of this line, too. This is where we closed 2 days ago. So, this is the range we've been in for 2 days. That's a tight range. That's about 22.5 to 23.6. So that's a $1,000 range we've spent the last 2 days. So it feels like these wild swings are happening, but it's really not. The wilder swings were happening in the Bitcoin miners. They had a big run up this week, more so than Bitcoin. Even though Bitcoin had a nice run, it took out 22,000, 23,000, and at one point 24,000. So that was a nice run up. But some of the miners just went ballistic. Warren Buffett announced last week, backs John Richardson. He owns Pilot and I don't know what. Okay, so the mighty, powerful Warren Buffett has spoken. Thank you, Alex. Warren Buffett is, as you guys well know, not a fan of Bitcoin. Not a fan. What's my opinion on Fubo? I'm worried about Fubo. I've done several videos on Fubo. The last video that I did, I basically said, look, I'm worried the risk profile has changed on this company. They're like, I love their product, and I think the death of streaming has been vastly exaggerated, right? Everybody thought Netflix was going to crash and everything was going to get pulled down with it, but we're at the beginning of streaming, not the end. So they do something nobody else does. I love that company, but again, they got a liquidity problem, and if they can't solve that liquidity problem, it doesn't matter how good they are at what they're doing. They also have a cost problem because their liquidity problem is a function of the fact that the content that they pay for, they're not charging enough money for it. They're paying more for it than they're charging for it. So that equation never gets fixed. The only way to fix that is to either reduce your cost, either have less content, or increase the price that you're charging. So unless they do one of those two things, I don't know how they can make it. I hope they make it, but I am not invested in them. Eric is saying in the Netherlands we pay less tax on electric cars and we do have enough charging stations. So it sounds like the Netherlands, you guys have the infrastructure. So we're not there. So that's good. That shows that, obviously there are places that have already gotten there. I will tell you, in the United States, we're just getting started. So you guys are way ahead of us. Ryan saying market's going to be flat till Wednesday with Fed Powell. Yeah, I think the equity markets may bounce around and be flat. I believe that Bitcoin is going to continue this relief rally. So that's just my personal belief, as long as the markets don't tank. And that's why I'm giving it until Wednesday, because there's no reason for the markets to tank ahead of the Fed. I know the markets tend to not like when the Fed speaks, but every once in a while it goes the other way. But I do think that's a potential end to this short-term relief rally. If we make it through there, if we make it through the Fed, if they do 75 basis points and they don't say anything scary, then I think we could run up to 29,000. But they always say something scary. I think they consider that a part of their job. One Hot Meal TV is a public service that is available for free. I'm not sure if that has to do with my Fubo talk. I mean, Fubo is a replacement for cable, and cable's not free, and they have a lot of proprietary content in the way of sports. They're very sports heavy, so they pay a lot of money for all these sports events that they show. Now, they also have a portion of this. This is the other thing that could save them, but I just feel like it's take so many years for them to implement. They have a gambling portion to this, which they are rolling out in test markets. You're going to be able to watch a game and bet on it in real time in a couple of test markets right now, but it could be years before they're generating, decent revenue from that piece of the puzzle. Martin's asking Fisker any thoughts. They have over 50K reservations. I will tell you, I have a general rule, and Fisker, at least Fisker is not in the market cap range of what happened to Rivian and Lucid. To me, those are still, I'm sorry, and I know some people get angry with me. I mean, I'm just looking at their financial statements. I think they are way overvalued from a market cap standpoint. And 50,000 reservations, how much did you have to put down for a reservation? Most of these companies, it was around $200 you put down and you got a reservation. I like their vehicle, and I hope they succeed, and they're nowhere near. That's what I was going to say. Their market cap is more like 2, 3, 4 billion, not 20, 30, 40 billion. But let me check. Yeah, they're at a 2.8 billion. They're just under a $3 billion market cap. So, but that's why, that's what confuses me. You've got Arrow that has a negative value, and you've got Fisker that's never sold a car, and they have a $3 billion market cap. And that's not to criticize them. They're just not at their revenue stage yet. They haven't started delivering cars. So, it's coming. Where's their revenue estimates? So it looks like they're expected to. So last year their sales were $100,000. So that basically means zero. Looks like this year the average estimate, and they got 7 people covering them, is $60 million. So that would be a big improvement. But next year is when they're going to kick in. They're hoping to do $2 billion next year. So that will start to make a lot of sense. And the thing is, when they're pre-revenue or early revenue, the other part that I struggle with, if you look at the profit margins on Lucid Motors and on Rivian, they're a disaster nightmare. Forget about net income. They're not making gross profit. They're losing money, I mean, by the billions of dollars. So maybe they will get through that. And, they're by no means even close to scaled up to where they want to go. So I understand if they can get scaled up and they can start doing, 500,000 cars a year, then they're, those are, that Lucid vehicle is a high-end luxury vehicle. So, but I don't know if they're going to sell 500,000 of those a year. Maybe they will. And if they do, then ultimately they'll probably succeed if they can get their costs in line. It took Tesla years and years. And this is what, people started calling me a Tesla fanboy because I mentioned the fact that Tesla actually has a gross profit on their vehicle. That was not easy for them. That took them a decade before they got to the point where they were even having a gross profit on their vehicle, never mind net income. So, it's not as easy as it looks. All these other companies just pop up and assume they're going to make a bunch of money. It's a tough space. And, like Alex, I think, said earlier, you've got the traditional manufacturers coming in. These guys already have all of their infrastructure. And, you're going to be competing with Ford and General Motors and Volkswagen and Mercedes and BMW, all of them, everybody. I'm not aware of anybody who hasn't jumped into that. One Hot Meal Aerial TV. I don't know what that is, so I'll have to look that up. Edmund, how about starting to cover the genetic genome stocks? The potential is unreal. This is like my Achilles heel. I will tell you, there are so many of these. I used to do a thing where every Friday we would pick a stock, and I had one rule. It could not be genetic, genomic, biopharmaceutical, because I'm so lost in that world. You're right. There's a lot of opportunity, but here's the thing. If you go through the Russell 2000, and I know that's a boring, time-consuming thing to do, the 50 worst performing stocks are all in that arena. They have struggled over the last few years. Nothing has gotten phase 2 or phase 3 approval, and it's just been a logjam, and those stocks have gotten killed. There was a point where a couple of them had famously had gigantic run-ups. And my problem is, if I'm going to get into that, I'm going to have to dedicate, that's going to take just as much time to understand as, the Bitcoin miners do. So I've avoided it for that reason, even though I agree, if you know what you're doing and you can pick the winners, when they win, it's just like the EV stocks. They're grand slam home runs. One Hot Meal, Tubi. Yes, I'm familiar with Tubi, and that is right. So Tubi is advertising based. So that's their business model. I'm not sure if that's the one owned by Paramount. Owns one of those. It might be Tubi. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. So there's a lot of room in the streaming space, and I think a lot of those guys are going to succeed, but Fubo is doing something different. They're paying for all these different sports games, and they're paying to have exclusivity on them. So, what we call soccer in the U.S. or football in the rest of the world, they've got a lot of exclusive rights to that in certain areas, and that costs them a lot of money. Popular with older generation, but it's not going away. I'm not sure what you're saying, what's popular with the older generation. That metal tower that's on the side of your house, it's for free TV. Well, yeah, there's a couple of, you can actually get a few stations for free in the United States anyway, and actually it's all digital now. Nothing's broadcast through the airwaves anymore here. But I understand what you're saying. Snap isn't advertising and got killed. Yeah, I was wondering if anybody was going to bring up Snap. They got absolutely decimated today. They were down, last time I looked, 35%. 39% they finished down on the day. So, and that is their new 52-week low. They were an $83 stock, so they're getting close to down. They're getting into that down 90% region. So I've looked at Snap and Pinterest, and obviously we all looked at Twitter a lot when Elon did his thing. So, but I did not buy or sell any of those. I don't feel good about the valuations because I don't think Snap they still don't make money. So I'm already invested in a lot of stocks that are pre-profit. And the Bitcoin miners were profitable. I'm not so sure this next quarter they're going to be showing profits. So we'll see what happens. Having said that, again, I am long-term very bullish on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Not every single one of them, but, the ones that I like. So, and I've done a deep dive video on almost every single Bitcoin miner over the last 60 days. So, if you're wondering about one, you can check it out. If I missed one, let me know. And just leave me a comment, and I'll get around to it. I do know that, some of the less popular, nobody watches those videos. I make them anyway, but, for whatever, nobody cares about Iris. Nobody cares about, even Argo got shockingly few views versus the rest of my videos, but I'm going to keep making them. Those are companies worth covering, in my opinion. So, all right, I got to wrap it up, guys. So I hope everybody has an awesome weekend. Thank you, everybody, for joining the live stream, and thanks everybody for the views, viewing the videos, and liking and subscribing. So if you haven't, please remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video, please, if you would. It helps the channel out a lot. So I appreciate everybody. I try to get to everybody's comments. So if you do leave comments, for the most part, I try to answer at least 75% of the comments in the first few days. So, you know, I can't keep up with all of them forever, but I do enjoy everybody's comments, and I really appreciate. I get a lot of insightful comments and a lot of nice comments, so I appreciate that very much, and I want to thank everybody for that. So I'm going to sign out. Alex, thank you. Have a great weekend. WLG, thank you. Have a great weekend. So I'm going to say have a good weekend. Too bad we ended on a red Friday, but it was a green week. So everybody enjoy your weekend. Thanks so much.